Some time ago I made a video where I go through all of the amps that I have owned since I started playing guitar. I also did the same with pedals or overdrive pedals, and it's been requested many times that I do the same thing with guitars. So here we go. So the first guitar I got, or the first electric guitar that I got, was a Washburn Strat copy. I got it from a friend and it came with a Washburn amp as well. And even then I wasn't very experienced. I could feel that this was a bad guitar. I used to play with a band and it always went out of tune and it was just horrible. The weird thing, when I finally decided to get a new guitar, I got almost the same guitar again. I ended up buying an Ibanez Strat copy. I don't remember this, but I found some pictures of it now, and it seems to it had like a HSS system, and that was also a really bad guitar. It didn't inspire me at all, and I remember leaving the guitar in the rehearsal space. I didn't even bother to bring it home. I practiced on an acoustic instead when I went home, and overall it was just a really bad guitar. So when I finally decided to put some more money in a guitar, a friend of mine who I played with recommended me to check out a Les Paul. I hadn't even heard about Les Pauls, but I went to a guitar store and I found, I think it was called Epiphone Les Paul Heritage, which was kind of like a sunburst Epiphone. And then I really could feel that the quality went up a couple of notches. I remember still having some troubles with tuning, and yeah, it wasn't the best guitar, but it was a lot better than the Ibanez. So I played that for quite a few years, and then I started, like before that, I didn't really care that much about how a guitar looked, and I wasn't good enough to actually tell the difference. If I tried different guitars, I didn't know anything. But I started to probably look more on the internet, and I started getting into Jazzmasters. And then I believe back then you couldn't get a Squier Jazzmaster or like a cheaper version. So the only option, at least from what I remember, I could get the American Vintage series. So actually on a holiday, me and my dad stopped by a guitar store in Sweden. And back then it was cheaper to buy Fender guitars in Sweden because of the currency and stuff. So I decided to order one. They didn't have one in the store, but they ordered a Sunburst Jazzmaster for me. And that's the one that I still have. That was my first proper guitar. I went back home after that, and I remember I had to paint a house and do a lot of work to earn enough money to buy that one, because it was still expensive, even though if I bought it in Sweden. And after a couple of months, me and my dad and my cousin, we drove back to Sweden and we picked up the guitar, and that was like the first time I felt that this is a proper guitar. I remember like sleeping with the case open, and just many times through the night just waking up and looking over at the guitar and be like, oh, that's so cool. So that was my first proper guitar, and I still have that one. Probably the next guitar that I got, I'm having a bit of a problem remembering the whole timeline, but I think the next one that I got was my ES335. I think the model is just called Satin Finish because of the finish. You could get it in black or red. I was just really into semi-hollow bodies back then. I remember actually before that I bought a Gretsch in New York, like the Electromatic series, and I didn't really bond with that guitar. It didn't have a center block, and overall it wasn't a good guitar, so I sold that one, and then I got my ES335 that I still have. After this, I started working in a guitar store. I remember when the Classic Player, I believe it was, series was announced, and we got the Baja Tele. And from what I remember, it was just like an instant thing. I need to get one of these, and we sold a bunch of them. I think they're still making them. They are not as good as they used to be. I remember when we got like a shipment of those teles, everyone was just like super good, very good neck and very good build quality. But I remember later, like the series got not that good. But that's a tele that I still have, and it's a really good guitar. I could easily compare that to like a custom shop Fender or something like that, because it's just awesome. Sometimes after that, I remember getting I think it was a vintage, Dan Electro, kind of similar to the Jimmy Page one. I think it's called the U2 or something. That was my first old guitar, and I remember I couldn't really bond with it. It was really quirky, which is cool, but you couldn't really trust it when you played. It was just going out of tune, and the strings, the action was so high you could probably like crawl between the guitar and the strings. It was just horrible, so I sold that one. Then I moved to Oslo and I bought a Gibson Custom Shop R8, or a 1958 reissue. That was also a really cool guitar. But again, I couldn't really bond with it. I couldn't use it live because I found the pickups to be too muddy, and the only thing that I used it for was just sitting at home and playing CC Top riffs, which it was awesome for, but it was just a rock and roll guitar. I couldn't really use it for anything else. And then I traded that one for my Fano PX6, which is probably my all-time favorite guitar. I've always been into the non-reverse Firebirds, but I really couldn't find a vintage one that felt right. The neck probably was too thin, and I remember trying and finding quite a few of them, but when I found the PX6, that was just like instant. And that's probably the guitar that I've used the most ever. It's just amazing. Sometimes after that, I did my first part sew guitar. I ordered parts from MJT, and I built like a black Esquire guitar, and that was really good actually. I really regret selling that one because I don't have that anymore, but that was really cool guitar. With part sew guitars, I feel like you can be really lucky and you can get a super good guitar, or it's just like meh, but this one was actually really good. Then I got in touch with TMG and I got my Ronnie Scott, which is my red Jazzmaster, and that's also a really cool guitar. I put some new pickups in it, and yeah, I just love the whole look of that guitar and how it sounds. It's just kind of my dream guitar when it comes to color, Fiesta red, matching headstock, and all of that stuff. It's just really cool guitar. By this, I'm doing a lot of demos, and a lot of people are requesting that I use a Strat when I do at least some of my demos, and I never really been a Strat guy, but I found like a cool cheap Fender Strat at a guitar store, and it was Sunburst, and it was actually quite good, but I wanted it in black, so I got them to order a black one instead, And of course, the black one, when that arrived, it wasn't that good. So I spent a lot of money changing the pickups and doing a lot with it to get it to play better, but I really couldn't bond with it. It got a lot better after doing some work, but still it wasn't good enough to keep in my collection, so I sold it. A year ago, 2 years ago, we went on a tour to England. And of course, when we came to London, we went to Denmark Street, and there's a lot of cool guitars there, of course. And I ended up also buying a silver tone, I think it's called Jupiter. That one was also really cool, kind of quirky. I like those quirky vintage guitars. But kind of similar to the Dan Electro. It was cool, but I couldn't really bond with it. And it was too quirky in some ways because it went out of tune. It was just living its own life. It was really hard to trust that guitar. So I sold it. So to the last guitar that I bought, and that's my Gibson Custom Shop R4, the 1954 reissue, which is also a really, really cool guitar. I kind of feel that I have the P90 area covered when it comes to guitar, and as you probably know, I'm trying to sell that one, even though it's a lovely guitar. It plays really good, but I feel that the P90 mini humbucker thing is kind of covered in my collection. So I'm trying to get like a similar guitar but with humbuckers, maybe a 59 replica or something like that. So yeah, that's my history of guitars. I'm kind of guessing that my bad experiences with those bad Strat copies in the beginning has scared me away from Strats, but I'm still open to finding a good Strat as well. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.